TV, YouTube. To me, YouTube is not TV, but let's not start this debate right now.
Wow.
No, 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 no.
That
I don't
is
want to have this debate. I
shots
think it's cooks.
fired. No, we should have this debate.
Welcome, everyone, to this week's episode of the Media Odyssey. This is Evan Shapiro.
And that is Marianne Rensha.
This week on the pod, we're talking about the Upfronts. The season started.
I don't know. We should probably talk about that. We also have a special guest from LG Ads. But let's dive in. There are a lot of divisions of the upfront season. So you have the new fronts, which are the more digital players. Then you have the upfronts. But yeah, I agree. I actually think the upfront season always starts at CES.
In Jan?
And then, yeah, because
Okay.
that's a big advertiser platform meetup. There's a huge section of CES. I go, you don't. Uh,
I go
uh,
next year.
you're gonna go
You're
next year?
taking
All
me.
right, we'll have a great time.
Yeah, yeah.
I have a great time there. I hate Vegas, but I'll have a great time there. Now I've said that, I'll get hate mail from Vegas. But I think it officially starts out. There's a lot of ad meetups with platforms there. I think South by Southwest is the official start of it. So I think technically you're right, but you're referring to this spotter event, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That took place on March 27. And what's fascinating is we've been talking about, the divide between big media and the creator economy. And so Spotter, it's a US company, actually backed in part by Amazon. And so they decided to do their own upfront like event where they gathered their network of content creators and they invited brands and agencies to come hear the pitch like they would in a few weeks time to listen to a Netflix and ABC, etc.
What I find fascinating about this, so Spotter is a company focused on creators.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
some might say influencers, but that's not when you look at the talent that they had at this event. So Kingra Diem, who
Yeah,
has 5 million subscribers, she does a scripted and a very interesting entertainment
I love it.
channel for 5 million subscribers. They call her the Tyler Perry of YouTube, and she gets 75% of her views on television. Colin and Samir, who hosted it, they have 2 million subs. Jordan Matter was there. He's got 29 million subs. Mr. Beast was
This
there.
was your
Yeah. So you're talking about the interesting thing is I've often made the analogy that YouTube is the new Comcast, right? These folks showed up as channels. They
yeah they
presented
did.
themselves in an upfront as different channels on this new distribution platform.
Yeah, and Spotter, they're actually investing in creators. They're really known for writing, big checks in
Right.
exchange for creators to come onto their platform, their ecosystem, and then they essentially manage the YouTube ad revenues for those creators. And they have
Well, it's a large
some
ad network at this point.
yeah, and they have eligibility criterias, right? So they're really looking for premium content, a certain number of minimum subs. So they say 50K, YouTube followers or subscribers, but they're actually working with way bigger creators. They're looking for folks who have been publishing constantly content for the last 12 months, etc. So YouTube is this massive thing, and let's be clear, this is the top. This is la crème de la crème of YouTube,
Yeah,
right?
these are the top of the top without question. The key element though here is that more and more of their inventory is being watched and merchandised and monetized through ad sales on TV. And the big message of this event from Spotter was YouTube is TV. What I find
Yeah,
fascinating is so they went out before the new fronts, which is the digital part of the upfronts, right? And they did their own channel upfront in this event that they called Spotter Showcase. When YouTube has their upfront, not during the new fronts, during the digital portion, but during the
yeah.
proper upfronts on May
In May,
14th at Lincoln Center with Lady Gaga and Mr. Beast and a whole bunch of other creators there. And they will also have big publishers there as well as part of their message. Again, putting themselves as television as opposed to digital distribution.
What's interesting is YouTube is. I'd like to know how YouTube, felt about that event, but I think it's interesting they went their own way because at the end of the day, you don't want to be over reliant on one platform. So I'm looking at Spotter. They're really focused on YouTube creators, YouTube ad revenues, etc. They should expand their horizon, and I think this event is a way of doing that. Also, I've never been to YouTube's event, but what I'm hearing is that they're really taking the platform angle, the technology angle, etc. This was very much content, right?
Yeah,
And
no, I think YouTube is thrilled, but I don't know. I have no idea
yeah,
how they thought about it, but this very much, if you think back to the interview I did with Pedro Pina at MIP London, where he said we're not in the content business,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then you look at
true.
Neil Mohan, the CEO of YouTube, his comments on creators are the new Hollywood. I think they're very happy with some of their bigger channels going out there and setting the bar higher. So that the expectation here is if you're going to buy into these premium channels, you're going to pay a premium CPM over what you would normally
Yeah,
buy from YouTube. And in YouTube's case, they're unable, they can't sell Mr. Beast's channel. They can't sell Colin and Samir's channels. They can sell YouTube. And
yeah.
so the higher CPMs that these premium channels get, YouTube rides along with that success. So that is a win for them. What I think is a larger issue here is that you have this massive channel presentation, channels that are larger than most of the cable universe individually. If you look at the individual, one of those videos from one of those creators that I just mentioned, Jordan Matter's latest video, which he put up a couple of days ago, now has 6 million
Yeah.
views. Like a 20-minute takeover video by his daughter. It's like a reality show thing. And that's bigger than a lot of television shows out there. So you have the biggest channels from YouTube out there presenting before the new fronts. Then you've got YouTube presenting at the upfronts. And what does this say about the upfront environment writ large? And then, frankly, what does this say about the advertising economy writ large for 2025? February, very famously, very recently, The Gauge had YouTube as the number one publisher
Yeah.
on television in the United States.
And it's
YouTube
their
by
highest,
itself,
right? They're
yeah, they're
trending
high,
close to 12. Remember my prediction
11.6%. Yeah,
at
11.
50, at 15?
Yes.
It's only February and they're close to 12. I think I should have bet something with you to gain something. I
You
really regret
win
that.
my adoration.
Your respect?
Your respect, yes.
Cool. I'll take it.
I
I'll
won't make
take
fun of
it.
your accent anymore.
No, but
Um,
what's interesting about what you're saying, right, is what does it say? It says that, audiences are fragmented and so the advertising business is fragmented, right? And so, all of those brands that were at that event, apparently the CEO was saying that they had a very long lists, a very long wait lists of folks who wanted to attend. They will be across all of those events and they will allocate where they think they can have, the best performing campaign, the most impact,
that's
etc.
exactly right.
So, which says one thing: it's not just a size or a quality thing or quantity thing; it's a quality thing. And one of the things
Without
that Spotter
question.
says,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah, but it's quality of content, but it's also quality of the audience and the intention that it brings, right? Because one of the things that where we're comparing everything together, TV, YouTube. To me, YouTube is not TV, but let's not start
Oh,
this
oh,
debate right now.
wow.
No, 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 no.
That
I don't
is
want to have this debate. I
shots
think it's moot.
fired. No, we should have this debate.
No, no.
When the biggest channels are out there, and
Let
by the way,
me finish.
most of their content is long form, and most of their content of those spotter creators, I would argue that they would tell you that most of their content is being seen on TV.
They are, and I'll stop you right there. Spotter is actually making the case that's almost 70% of the impressions from their, portfolio of creators is on CTV. So no, there's no doubt of that about that. But I think it's a wording thing. To me,
Oh, I
YouTube is
just
a
completely
platform. It's not a
disagree, and
TV channel.
I think that's the danger that the traditional publishers face in this upfront. I was with a major publisher, a broadcaster in the US earlier this week. And the conversation I had with them, and I showed using their own data the difference in audiences between broadcast and YouTube, just of their own content. And their abandonment of YouTube and TikTok and other social video is an abandonment of an audience. So
Of
when
course.
traditional
I
publishers
agree.
say we don't, ride on that wave, they are avoiding big audiences that they could be getting better CPMs for if they could consistently rely on them.
I
And
I
more
agree, Ivan, but it's not so. The thing is that it's becoming this thing where at the end of the day, what matters is what you do. It's not the name, the label. I don't care if YouTube is TV, yes or no.
I think this advertising economy, and this gets to a larger topic, this upfront, the gravitational pull of the reliable delivery of eyeballs from social media in a transactional continuum with your advertising is going to disproportionately move money out of traditional television and even the growth of connected television back to these large digital walled gardens because YouTube is also the number one television channel and Amazon has basketball. And I think there is a retraction of dollars happening in the ad market right now, at least in the US.
Yeah,
But
yeah,
I'm
for sure.
beginning to hear that it's happening globally because of a recessionary fears in the
Yeah.
US, in particular, driven by interesting moves by people
Mhm.
in power with regards to the free market in the United
Yeah,
States.
absolutely. No, but I
And
think we
there is
agree.
going to be money moved around as a result of that, and I think money will be moved into platforms where there is more predictable outcome from the money spent, and that a lot of powder will remain dry in this upfront as a result. So when you don't see YouTube as TV, I think one of the reasons why money will safely move to Google and Meta and Amazon is YouTube is television now. Amazon is TV now. So you can get both of those things from these platforms where you already know you're going to be spending a shit ton. The majority, 60% of your budget is going to go to those three players. So to put even more money there is very easy.
No, but I think we agree on that. It's becoming a discussion on semantics. I'm not saying that audiences are not spending time there. I'm just saying not all things are equal. They bring different things to different people, and yes, you need to have a strategy where you do both. Just going back on the, let's talk money.
As an advertiser, you mean?
Yeah, but even to the point you were making, a broadcaster cannot really afford not to be part of this, right? No, there's no
That's
doubt
from a
about that. But it's
pure
just,
audience survival standpoint.
yeah, you don't want to. So I'll finish on this, which to say why I don't like this comparison is because to me, it's a platform. And what's important, and it matters, it's not regulated. We need to compare apples to
Yeah,
apples. So
yeah, no, that is that th
let's be
it is not
careful with that.
regulated. It is a platform, they don't make and distribute content, you're
Yeah,
right.
exactly. They are doing all of this risk-free, so that's why I don't like that comparison,
That is
saying
a
that
that
YouTube is TV.
and I also
Yeah,
think there is a reality by which you need to buy both universes in order to truly get the full audience out there. If you're not buying,
absolutely.
the apps of the traditional publishers who are also publishing on YouTube, you're leaving,
Yeah,
a huge chunk, if not half of the audience on the table there. I also agree that better regulation of big tech is absolutely needed. If you're an advertiser, though, right now, and you have $1 to spend and you
yeah,
have 3 choices to make. Where are you spending your $1 right now?
yeah. Well, so let's talk
I'm
numbers.
asking you that. Where would you
Well
spend? Where would you spend your
well,
$1?
again, it depends on the objectives that I'm trying to achieve, the
That's
audiences that I'm
fair.
looking to target. So I think it's too easy to say, "I have $1, I'll put everything in here." It's
Damn
more
it.
complicated than that. I'll put some money on TV and in digital. I'll do both. Now, within digital, let's just spend a minute on that, right? Speaking about, one big spender, someone like Unilever, they said they would be spending 50% of their global marketing spend to social media and the creator economy. right? So I think
50%. One of
that's a
the
great
top 10
table.
advertisers on the planet Earth, yeah.
And it's likely last year those big digital spenders, the Amazon, Airbnb, Booking, Expedia of the world, Uber, all of these guys, they've spent a bit more last year, but they're not going to keep spending, right? They're really
You mean
much,
increase in budgets?
yeah, they've spent a little more. The direction of travel is not necessarily spending more. So that takes us to the upfront, right? How much money are we talking about?
In the upfront?
Yeah. So the concept of the upfront is that they're pre-selling, right?
Yeah.
The advertising. This is something that does not exist in France. You can buy maybe a few months ahead,
So it is
maybe 3 months ahead, but
primarily
that's it.
it is primarily a television US budget,
Yeah.
right? So if you're talking about, let's call it 130, $140 billion, and it varies from year to year. So you're not spending 100% of your money, and that's part of the calculation.
Okay.
So remember here, you're spending money between the official kickoff of the upfront, which is early May, through the end of closing deals,
Okay.
which
Which
is
is what?
and can stretch out. Well, that's it. Like there is no time. There's no
Okay.
timer on it. Like pencils down, everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes it stretches out. The complaint is sometimes it stretches out forever and it never ends. And the negotiations. And so the big players get in front. What's odd is in the last couple of years, the fancy shiny objects like the Netflixes of the world have gotten their deals done first because they're sexy. And
Mm.
the big buyers like that kind of stuff. I don't
And
know if
new. Yeah.
afraid, a recession looming marketplace has you spending $65 CPMs on fancy schmancy shiny objects, as
Mm.
opposed to Amazon, where I can click through and sell something, or in basketball, by the way, or YouTube from one of those channels. Again, there's so much data there compared to a Netflix, whose
Yeah.
data stack is just not comparable to the walled gardens. You know, you look at Disney. Disney is gonna be fine relative to the whole, probably either way,
Mm.
because they have broadcast, ABC, they have sports, ESPN, they have Hulu, which is by far and away the single best premium ad sales environment on television.
Yeah.
Which by the way, some would argue is not a good thing because they have a heavier ad load than anybody else, which
Mm.
is annoying to the consumer. But they have such all these various wheels and arms to their legs, and they're very good at selling digital, which not everybody else in traditional media is. Disco
Yes.
Brothers is not good at it. Very, very bad at it. Paramount better than most because they have Tubi. I mean, so Pluto, and Fox has Tubi. So there are different talents in there, but generally speaking, you're going to want to have lots of digital arms and other legs to you going into this upfront, I believe.
And so one thing, the reason the concept, for those of us who are not from the US, is that because you're buying early, are you buying cheaper?
Yeah. So no, again, thank you for finishing that thought. So one of the big variables in every upfront is how much of my spend will I spend? And that goes up
Okay.
and down every year. So is it 70%? Is it 30%? It's somewhere between those two. It used to be a heavier dose of upfront. That's being pared back on an ongoing basis. In big reason because I'd rather adapt my spend across the year than be locked into prices. Now,
Yeah.
if you lock in, you're spending money on fourth quarter of this year
Mm.
through third quarter of 26.
A lot can happen.
Right. And you're
Yeah.
locking in prices to your question.
Yeah. Okay.
You're
So it's
locking
a
in
cheaper price.
guaranteed prices and guaranteed deliveries. You're also getting tentpole programming like the Olympics.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is an Olympics in 26. You're getting the Super Bowl to a certain extent. So you lock in massive tentpole programming depending on who the programmer is. But simultaneous, nothing happens in a vacuum. You're not just going and locking up your television
Yeah.
money, you're also spending digital money simultaneously. And I think that's why people are pulling money out of big, chunky upfront commitments in favor of scatter and or the adaptability of digital based on ROAS.
Yeah. So keep it lean, right, and flexible, which it feels like, because historically
especially
this,
in a recessionary economy. Yes.
yeah, this thing is from the 60s, I read, and the idea being that that money was meant to help fund the programming, right?
Well, do
So
you want me to show you how far back the upfront concept goes? So the upfront concept actually ties back to agricultural revolution.
okay,
The television season, if you think about it, is wrapped around the school season. The school season is wrapped
yeah,
around farming. When is the
okay,
harvest, right? The
yeah,
upfront matches that calendar. We are still
fascinating.
using the cycle of the sun to sell our advertising on television. That's how antiquated this process is. It's really mind-bogglingly old-fashioned. But I will say this, there is a useful planning mechanism that everybody still finds relevant. The timing of it all, and you can see that by Google embracing the upfront. There is a
Yeah, yeah,
very useful timing mechanism from a planning standpoint, both from a seller side and a buy side. And if you think that Google isn't tying larger deals together as a result of that, you're kidding yourself.
yeah,
So, and by the way, if you don't think that's US based calendar thing isn't affecting worldwide ad
yeah.
economy, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah.
It
So,
absolutely is.
speaking of, I think you shared with us a few days ago predictions. What are your predictions? So, let's not do 10. Let's do just a
Sure.
couple, in the interest of time. You got to be snappy. Tell me,
Yeah.
school us.
Wow. I feel like really under a lot of pressure right now. For those people who are listening, I put up a slide which shows the monthly ad spend increases going back to January of 2024 and then towards 2025 or just a couple months ago. And you can see that generally speaking, ad spend in the US has been on a good trajectory. Each month it is up above the same month a year prior. And that's happened month after month after month for a year now. And prior to this, or a little bit prior to this period, we were mired in what I call an impression recession, where each of these numbers were red and negative month after month,
Yeah.
down from the previous year. There is this one interesting area. So if you look at the fourth quarter of 2024, it should have been up and to the right. The economy was in good shape. Inflation, in particular, had come down by then, and employment had also stayed solid. But what happened was there was this uncertainty around a lot of elections.
Mm,
40% of the world's population was having an election this past fall,
mm,
right? The US election in particular created a lot of uncertainty and growth during fourth quarter, which should have been up and to the right very heavily, really flattened out. And then the election settled and business thought it was great for them. And in December and January, the growth continued again. What you see now happening, at least by word of mouth, around the ad economy that with conversations I'm having, is that there is this uncertainty hovering over everything.
yeah,
Given
for
the,
sure.
I think, somewhat erratic behavior of the person in the White House here in the US, we can see that it's just the stock market today on Liberation Day tanked. And
Mm,
so there is money that is being pulled back across, the Atlantic
mm,
in the ad economy. I had a conversation with one of the larger ad platforms on the planet today, and they're very worried about what they're seeing from a spend standpoint. So that's my major prediction is it's going to be at least a hover around safety upfront.
yeah,
And so what
interesting.
would normally would have been I think a down year anyway for the upfront is going to be further down in part because people are going to want to spend less, but in part because they're going to keep their powder dry and keep it out of up big chunky
Yeah,
upfront deals and flexible for later in the year. But overall, that entirely plays into the hands of the big walled gardens.
yeah,
Meta will sell more advertising this year than all of television, and no one's going to get fired for buying more Instagram. And if TikTok survives, no one's going to get fired for buying more
mm,
TikTok. We can prove that these outlets work. So I think the shift to pure play digital and to the walled gardens in a recessionary feared year is going to be even heavier.
Well, the thing is digital still very much a safe bet? I've actually read a survey saying that 75% of digital marketers were actually seeing the return on investment on their campaigns, that it was going down. So maybe the safe bet is TV.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I think there is some measurement showing that not everything is returning on that ad spend, but I also think buyers want safety. So I guess we'll see. We will see.
We will see. So let's welcome our guest because we have someone amazing today.
So today on the Media Odyssey podcast, we have Ayana Protegiannis. Did I say that correctly?
Yes.
And you are the Senior Director of Measurement and Reporting Solutions at LG Ad Solutions. Is that correct?
Yes.
So my next question is, what the heck does that mean? What do you do on a daily basis, weekly basis, monthly basis at your office?
That's a great question. So my team focuses on all first-party data deliverables, so post-campaign wrap decks, sales strategy, and then we also focus on partnerships, so third-party partnerships between data, creative, and measurement. So we have a pretty big ecosystem of making sure we're able to reach the client from a first-party and third-party side.
So you're breathing data day in, day out. Is the data any good in this space? You know, CTV is supposed to be this big new thing. Everything is perfect and dandy. Is that the case?
I wouldn't say it's perfect and dandy, but data is key, right? Data is knowledge. It's kind of the best part. I love it. It's the most favorite part of my job. So our first party data is pretty strong. We've got ACR, you've got other capabilities, whether you're a media and entertainment client, you also have app level data. And then when we work with our third party clients, you can get into other parts of data to complement it. So you've got sales lift data, brand lift data, some survey based, and everybody's got a bunch of methodologies, but still at the end of the day helps tell a holistic story together.
What do you think is the key driver of effectiveness? Meaning, you know, when the client is coming in and looking for the efficacy of their campaign on CTV, and that is supposed to be one of the highlights of the data that you can provide. What are they looking for? Are they looking for awareness? Are they looking for click-through rates? Are they looking for lift, to your point, lift in sales? What are the key metrics that they're looking to measure these days?
Usually there's a couple KPIs, right? So CTR will always show you engagement, but it's not enough to take you over the line to really get that budget unlocked. So it depends what vertical you're on and where we sit in the funnel. So if you're media and entertainment, we have the lower level conversion on the TV, how you utilize the apps on the TV. So in their case, CTR is just, you know, a preliminary, but they want to see more. What are people, you know, how often are they clicking on the app? How long are they spending in the app? That's the beauty of the OEM with the app partners. And then when you think of general market, yes, CTR and VCR are important. Incremental reach is definitely one. You know, where are you getting audiences beyond linear? And then on top of that, you brought up a great point of awareness and ad recall. They complement each other. So if you're looking to go internally to unlock budgets, you kind of want to know what's the strategy, the KPI, and the outcome to unlock that budget with your finance team, most likely. So if you need to have sales lift because you need some kind of tie back to transaction, then you need that regardless, and incremental reach helps complement that. And if it's understanding the brand awareness or the ad recall, and that's something for a newer brand, that's also important. So you use the two together.
How do you use, you mentioned third-party partnerships. You know, how do you utilize, I mean, what's the importance of a third-party provider in these types of campaigns that you're running, and what kind of role do they typically play, or when do you employ them?
Yeah, so great question. I think for us, we have strong data of ACR data and we know user behavior, but we don't know all of the survey-based data that, say, a brand lift capability could have, or we don't have transaction data. And if you are a part of a QSR or a CPG, and that is really important to you, then you do need that data as well to help drive that strategy. And it's really to show, to your point, the effectiveness, right? Overall, it's hard, you know, when you're not necessarily the website or the lowest point of the conversion, you have to prove the value of it. And that is the beauty of CTV, is by doing this, you can prove it in multiple parts of the funnel, whereas traditionally in linear, you might have been a little bit more blind. So we work together. We are agnostic. That's one thing that we stand by, because we like to align with what the client feels most comfortable with and strongest about. We're very client first centric. So that's kind of how we work with the partners. We give them a multitude of options and we can say what the pros and cons are, but it's really up to them who they feel most comfortable with.
Well, and I've been saying this, we debated this on the measurement episode, Marianne, which is, are there going to be multiple providers of currencies, multiple providers of data around that? And I said it's going to be kind of deal by deal. Ayana, are you seeing either
Yes.
agency-wide, big holdco wide, or brand, a P&G, Unilever, they're so massive in and of themselves, they can pretty much dictate what third party they bring to the table. And you have to be, as a platform, as a supply sider, you have to be flexible enough to work with whomever they're bringing to the table, correct?
100%. You don't want to, if you force a client upon a big company who has their own goals and working across multiple providers, it won't suit you well. So our best bet is just the more we know. So we learn, we educate, the different methodologies, be able to explain the pros and cons. We bring the partners to the calls so that they feel comfortable with it. But everyone does have their own preference and it changes year over year. You don't have to want the same third-party provider in Q1 that you do in Q4. So
Or
being
campaign like
agile.
you've been different, bigger companies like P&G, they might have different third
Yes.
parties for different brands for very specific reasons.
And especially with new players coming into the games and going to conferences and promoting their new product lines, they come back and we're ready, hit the ground running, and we got to kind of adapt quickly. And that is something that, again, it kind of goes back to the more you know, but we learn a lot and we just pivot quickly and work together. That's like our main thing, is just how to work best with clients to help them on their side.
You mentioned ACR data. Can we go back to that? Because I think we know what it is, but I'm not sure every listener on TMO knows what it is. And I think it's very
point
specific
there,
to the
Marianne.
CTV space.
So our ACR data is our automated content recognition data. So we're able to index linear ad viewership and program viewership. So if you're running a campaign through linear, it's most common in the general market, and you want to understand, am I hitting that audience with my CTV or am I getting beyond that? That's where our ACR data is a huge complement of. And, something that's really great to know is we know more people are cutting the cord, right? So it's really great to understand that you want to make your money matter and not duplicative. So with our ACR data, you can suppress the audience on a weekly basis, retarget the audience, however your strategy goes, and you're able to reach beyond with CTV. So this way, you're not hitting the same household multiple times and saturating them. And then we know there's a lot of households, myself as one, that don't have linear. So you have to reach me in a different way. So by utilizing ACR, you can identify, I don't have linear, therefore reach me through CTV in your campaign. And this way you can make your money go a little further.
Interesting.
You're also measuring usage beyond video too, right? So there's gameplay there and on ACR. And so, one of the things I've said is going to be an explosion is in-game advertising. Ultimately, the gaming sphere, there's another, these hours-long sessions, 2-3 hours long sessions, opportunity there to measure reach and ad play as well.
Yeah, the gaming product is probably one of my most favorite because we're able to identify through the gaming console plugged in if you saw the ad and then you went in to play the ad versus those who didn't see the ad and played the ad. And it's definitely big tentpole releases are big ones, but there's also smaller game companies that are now able to get insights that they might not have been able to get before. You also know estimated prices of games, right? You don't know exactly potentially whether what they bought, what specific package, but you know the lowest and can estimate an upside on ROAS, which they couldn't do before, to be able to kind of go back and say, hey, spending money on CTV or on native, which is our big, beautiful home screen unit, takes up about half the TV. You're able to see that now and kind of be able to go back to your finance team and say, hey, this marketing money really mattered, and here's why.
You're putting a lot of that data to work for advertisers and providers, but what about users? How do you use that data we were in another episode talking about, content discovery, we're seeing time spent going down. How do you make sure that you're bringing, the best experience to consumers so that they want to stay in beyond, what Netflix wants to achieve or, Coca-Cola wants to achieve?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. I think we've done a bunch of research before to see that there's a lot of options out there, like you're saying, and people don't really know necessarily what to choose. So this is where I do think creative comes in handy. So we have multitude of creative where you can run a couple different content on a single creative banner. We've seen that to be super successful to allow people to see there's a breadth of content to kind of navigate them into the app a little bit. We've also been able to grab people's attention with this home screen unit by running. So a brand new content release comes out, say you're, any specific app and you on the 5th season, it's coming back out. You can do a companion carousel banner. So what that is you can play the video on the left-hand side of this new ad unit to gravitate the user to seeing it. And then on the right-hand side, let them know exactly where it is. So it helps bring awareness to what's coming out as soon as you turn your TV on before you go into any streaming apps. The first thing you see. So we've been trying to help work to that. And then you have multiple creatives you kind of slice in and out. And then based on CTR, app opens, how long they're spending in, you can gauge the success of it and then bring that feedback back to the client for future campaigns.
And so for viewers, does that mean that the experience is highly personalized, and then that would be one of the biggest draw of CTV versus traditional TV, right?
I think that's the ultimate end goal with AI, right? So as we start to, integrate more of AI into our system, personalization definitely is something that we want to. At the moment, we use a lot of our data and tools to kind of figure out what, segment certain households on what we know their behaviors are between linear, what apps they're using together, kind of grouping them on the TV and serving content to them based on that. And then throughout the campaign, constantly making optimizations based on it. So at the moment, we have a bit of AI and manual, and then the future, if you think about it, would definitely be much more seamless, built in, and kind of just automate those personalizations on our home screen and then also throughout the pods within CTV app placements.
So we're about to enter the new fronts and the upfronts, and everybody we talk to who works in the ad game, which is what you do, we ask them, what's their perspective? What do you see? What are the trends you see coming? I mean, you talk to a lot of partners who are changing their expectations and changing their measurement goals and changing the way they weigh different aspects of the return on ad spend, as you said, ROAS. What do you see as the biggest trends coming up this new upfront period as far as measurement goes, or, which parts of the continuum of effectiveness are going to be most concentrated?
Yeah, I think measurement definitely matters the most, right? At the end of the day, it's key. So everything you spend money on needs measurement that they can tie back to a dollar. So
Yep.
As new partners start coming to the game, as long as they are able to prove something over another partner in a more efficient manner or a more direct manner for a non-ads team to understand, that's what I've seen be most successful. Because at the end of the day, finance teams unlock the budgets, and finance teams don't necessarily, are not sales or operations teams or products teams. So it has to be something that they can really tangibly see the value of. And then I think as we learn more about AI in the system, something that we're super excited about is smart segments. So if you're looking to run a campaign and you want to know what's another audience, you could have run in the future that would have been as effective from a measurement perspective to make sure they still achieve their goal, lookalike smart segments from an AI standpoint should be able to help you do that faster. And that's probably my final point is agile and fast. Like both the points kind of seem the same, but I keep reiterating it because it's so important. You just have to be flexible and quick in this space.
Yeah.
Things change all the time. So as long as you're constantly moving with it in the right direction, you will be successful, and you'll also be learning as much as possible, which is probably the most key. Always keep learning.
That's
Awesome.
great.
I love it. I think this is a perfect ending to this, agile and fast. I love it.
Thanks a lot, Ayana. We'll put a link to your bio in the notes. Thanks so much for being our guest. Thanks for checking
thank
this
you.
out.
Thanks for having me. Really appreciate it.
Well, that was a great interview. Ayana's really super smart, and I think this episode has really given us a lot to think about for this year's Upfront.
Absolutely.
Well, good to see you again. Great to hang out. What is your Substack called?
It's called Streaming Made Easy. How about
Uh,
yours?
Mine is called Media War and Peace. And Substack is having a moment, it seems, right now.
It
There's this
is.
big
It
piece
is.
recently in New York Magazine, which everybody should check out. So I think we're leading that charge, right?
Yeah, I'm sure. See
Thanks, everybody, for listening. We'll see you next time.
you next week.